Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and this one was not one that I was expecting to make, genuinely. There is some incredible news that has been announced for MapleStory and the future of Maple with a new Inkwell note that came out of absolutely nowhere, and I kind of want to go over a little bit more. You've probably already seen the news if you've been on the internet, but if you're interested in hearing it, well, here it is. So we've got the 20th anniversary announcement, and there's some pretty big bombshells in here that I was not expecting or anticipating in any way whatsoever. So first off, they just do a little recap and then go straight into how they've worked really hard on the Steam Marketplace as well as the Harvest system. And I think these are two really good additions to the game. They're wonderful. They could use a little bit of tweaks, but you know, what can't use a little bit of tweaks, right? So thank you for, working on a system like this and bringing this type of exclusive, unique content to our server and, just developing GMS better. This is amazing. So, definitely something worth to be celebrated. And I think it's cool that they, showed an example of the things that they're working and developing on that are actually unique. So I do love that. And then we get into the bombshells of everything, which is the 20th anniversary video. Now we're not gonna go through this. This is 17 and a half minutes. I think milking a reaction from this would be completely stupid. So we're just gonna do a little bit of a recap. So the first thing they do is just kind of do a little bit of nostalgia of 20 years of Maple. Then they announced a classic server. And I don't mean art tale on Maple Worlds. No. I mean an official dedicated server client for classic MapleStory that is not running on MapleStory Worlds, which MapleStory Worlds is kind of like its own engine. So this is going back to the original, core system, engine, everything like that, which is insane. To my understanding, I thought this would never happen. Sincerely, I thought Nexon was never interested in such a thing. It's quite unique to see that they are. I don't know what changed their minds. Maybe Artale, maybe MapleStory Worlds showed enough interest, which would make sense. I mean, if there is an interest that is shown, it would make sense to, invest into that. So I think that's pretty cool. I have a lot of nostalgia for old Maple, but not the nostalgia where I want to play the game back to where it used to be. So I may not be someone who's really into it, but if you are, I think that's really cool, and I'll definitely probably make some videos on it here and there. But this was definitely not anticipated. This was one of those really big, nobody saw coming moments, which was quite interesting. And then the next thing was the 20th anniversary update, which this is actually nothing new. I will cover this in its own video. It was already out in KMS. We're just getting a copy paste of the KMS anniversary. So, stay tuned for another video on that later. The next big thing was Xuan being added, which this was something that I feel like in the community kind of anticipated to happen at some point, sitting in the back pocket, just when are they going to release it? A lot of people did want this class. For those that don't know, Xuan actually has the same Legion link block skill as Jet did. So this basically replaces that, and this is basically being added around the time that the Jet block had expired, because it was back in, March? So not too far apart. So this was pretty big as well. I think this is good. Considering that Xuan was a class that was already designed and made, so it's not like, they're focusing on other classes or anything like this. This is just kind of like a bonus for us, and I think that's pretty cool. He's got some really cool skill animations, and he's a pretty sick class. So for all you copers and people that had crazy hopes for Xuan over the year or years at this point, he's finally going to be coming into the game. So that's pretty cool. And then they just discussed future developments and how they're going to keep working on the game and kind of adding development specifically into GMS, which is really cool. Now, besides this and the announcement for this is just like the MapleCon is just MapleStory Fest, but something bigger, I suppose. But outside of this, now this is quite interesting because they've said we're working closely reviewing whether boss power crystal adjustments currently implemented KMS are suitable for GMS. This also goes with star forcing and quality of life improvements. So they've basically lightly touched on the concern that everyone's had about, are we going to be getting the new systems that KMS has announced? Because if you're out of the loop, KMS has announced a ton of crazy gameplay changes that will really shake up the game, and don't apply to us as well, because reboot, KMS doesn't have reboot anymore. They got rid of it. So for GMS, having these systems that KMS are implementing could be very damaging if not done carefully. So we finally got a little bit, and I mean just a tiny bit, of reassurance that they're looking at it, and that this is on their mind, which is really good, because it's very possible that they're developing solutions. I've been sitting on an egg for a very long time of wanting to make a video expressing my suggestions and feedback for how to balance this and how to properly develop this, that are different than ideas already have shared on YouTube here in this space. So I'm not going to do it in this video, but I think soon I'm going to do it. Not that I think they'll listen to me or anything like that, but just to kind of share with the community and see if anyone else agrees. I think there's a lot of ways to go about it, but it definitely needs to be handled delicately, especially because in reboot it's not that easy to get dupes and all that kind of stuff. But hearing this in a Inkwell note is really nice to finally hear something. And I'm sure it's going to reassure a lot of people that they're working in a better direction. So it's nice to get this kind of communication. My only hope is that we continue to get this communication and they actually share more in-depth plans. I don't want like bombshells to be dropped without them being like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it, this is how we're going about it. We're going to adapt it based off of community feedback, because that's really important, and that's still something that I think that lacks quite a bit. But getting that for things like this is going to really help the life of the game. You really want to be developing it based off your players and what they want, and the game's gonna strive from there. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this memo. Some pretty big announcements. If you're looking forward to playing the Classic server, let me know down in the comments below. And if you have any other thoughts about this, also let me know. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.